When it comes to 80s or early 90s glam metal, before grunge kind of killed everything, one guitarist that I think is way overlooked by the mainstream, and that's Warren DeMartini of RATT. He's just got an iconic tone and a style to him that was phenomenal, and it can be heard in most of RATT's catalog. So what we're going to do today, we're going to work on a RATT DeMartini inspired tone in the kind of tune of lack of communication and you're in love. So let's get busy. First, we're going to start with our sterile tone, nice clean all the way across the board here. We're going to put it in chain 3-1, and there's a good reason for that, and I'll get to that in just a second. But we're going to bump this up to brown and variation, and we're going to turn that gain down to about 13, and jack the volume up to about 87. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to go up to System, and I put it on record this time. I turned off the custom settings and put it on record because I found this sounded closer to when the cable was unplugged from out. So it sounds closer to the speaker than it does if I had used the IR custom settings. So that's what I did. I just put it on record, and it's as close to that as it gets. So coming back here, we're on brown, variation, gain 13, volume 87. And we're going to take the bass down a bit to about 43, dial the mids back to about 35, and bump the treble up to about 71. We're going to come over to presence, and you can leave it around 50. Put it on vintage, and you're good to go. That's your panel all the way across. Now, the reason we're putting it on chain 3 is because it puts the FX before the amp equalizer, and we have a graphic EQ in the effects that we're going to work on. But we'll work on the boost first. So let's go over to the boost, and we're just going to use a tube screamer. Let's see what we're sounding before we turn everything on. A little weak. So we're going to turn on the tube screamer, and we're going to dial this back to almost nothing. 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. Bump up the tone just a little bit, and then bump up the bottom end here. Now we're going to crank that effect up to about 63 to kind of give this tube screamer a little bit of balls. It's sounding better already. And we're working with a Dean VMNT Dave Mustaine United Abominations edition. It's a lower end Dean, but I've got an SH4 JB in the bridge, and it sounds fantastic. And I've got it set up really nicely. So that's going to help out with your tone. Where were we? We were at boost. Tube screamer. You got the settings there. Now we're going to go over the effects, and we're going to put it on graphic equalizer. And we're going to bump 31 down to -5, 62 down to -4, -1 on the 125, -1 on the 250, -2 on the 500, -2 on the 1 kilohertz, -1 on the 2 kilohertz, -3 on the 4, -6 on the 8, and lastly, we're going -8 on the 16, -8 on the 16, and then we're going to bump up the decibel just a couple, just to bring it back up. Let's hear how we're sounding. You may not hear a whole lot of difference. But it's going to be there. Trust me on that one. Now we're going to your delay. And we're going to set an analog delay to about 215 milliseconds. And then about 30 on the feedback. Going to keep the kilohertz at 4, the high cut. And the effects level around 45, just so it's not too bouncy. And we're sounding good so far. Let's go over to the reverb. And we're going to put it on a hall reverb. You can try to use a modulate, but the hall gives it makes it a little more broader. So use the hall, turn that on. You can turn the reverb time down to about 2.7. Leave 10 milliseconds. The low cut down to about 25. And we're going to bump up the high cut about 630. Intensity right up to 10. And then we're going to turn the level down to 31. Oh, got to turn it on. So we're done with the effects. Now we move on to the good stuff. Good old parametric EQ. It's going to be amp out, and we're gonna listen to it with amp in as well. We're gonna bump up the low gain to about 6 decibels. Dial back the low mid to about -2. Put about 50 hertz on the low cut. 630 on the low mids. Bump both the mid Q and the low Q and the high Q up to 2, and the high mid we're going to put up at 4. We're going to dial back the high mid frequency to 250, the high cut to 5, put it up to 4 on the high gain, and 5 on the level. So let's hear it. And with it on. Now it sounds good. Now this sounds good either way. This is going to sound a little bit thinner. Now make sure you're in drop D. Warren plays a lot in drop D. We're going to put it back on amp out because it just sounds like it has a little more backbone. And that is it. That gets you right there, and it's a pretty decent, it's a close sound. It's not perfect. But let's go back to the chain. Remember I was telling you about chain 3? I'm going to let you hear it on chain 2 as well. Chain 2 sounds a little brighter. I'm sorry, chain 3 sounds a little bit brighter. You could probably get away with either one, but I think chain 3 sounds the best. Now, if you want to add a little more bite, you can bump up the presence. Or you can even go back to the parametric EQ, and you can play with the high and mid frequencies. I like to play with those two for some reason, because it can make a big difference. All of these down here can make a big difference. Wrong chord. Yeah, you can play with those, but I like it at 250 and at 5, and even down here with the low cut. You can play with that too. Like I said, I like it at 50. You can adjust it however you want. You can download this patch from my Google Drive. It is called RATT in Love, and it's only got one in there called D Martini. And you can download that, and you can do whatever you like with it. You can change it. You can rename it. You can call it whatever you want. I don't care. Like I said before, none of this is patented, and this is just me playing around, trying to show you how to do, different tones. And if you can take that tone and make it into somebody else's tone, do it. do it. So that is, I think I covered just about anything. There was no contour, no solo. Oh, noise gate. Make sure you got your noise gate on. You can set it about 42, 50, anywhere up in there. Because if you have it off, you're going to have all that noise when you're not playing. That was sloppy. But if you turn it back on, it quiets it down. Use that noise suppressor. All right, that's going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and download that patch down in the description, and we'll see you next time.